Today I'd like to share with you part 3 of my recent interview with Dr. William Davis, MD, New York Times bestselling author of the Wheat Belly series of books and my personal favorite, Super Gut, where Dr. Davis introduced us to how to make MyReuteri, the super cultured dairy. Hi, sweet friends. If we're meeting for the first time, I'm Mary, author of the Modern Pioneer Cookbook and now the Modern Pioneer Pantry, and I'd like to welcome you to my kitchen. Well, that's fascinating. And you mentioned this, you have Gut to Glow, which is a nice companion with the MyReuteri. So do you recommend making the MyReuteri or making the MyReuteri with MyReuteri, and then also taking this Gut to Glow, which has the ingredients you were just talking about, the marine collagen and the hyaluronic acid and so on and so forth?
You know, I did that for convenience, Mary. So my audience, I'm sure yours is likewise, is mostly female.
Yes.
And they say, I'm sick and tired of making the yogurt. Okay, it's easy, but okay, all right, fine. Or I'm going to be traveling. I don't want to bring a yogurt maker with me, or some other reason like that. And so I said, okay, so I formulated this thing so that it was convenient. But both products can be used to make the yogurt. The only weird thing is if you make it with the Gut to Glow, because there's a carotenoid, astaxanthin, like beta carotene.
Yes.
It will color the first batch like pink. It won't hurt anything. If you make your future batches from a little of the prior batch, and of course, that's the magic of this, right? You only have to buy your product once, and then you can propagate it, just like you would in conventional yogurt making. But, you know, we should make that point that this is not yogurt.
Yes.
The stuff in the store uses different microbes like Lactobacillus bulgaricus, Streptococcus thermophilus. These are not very interesting. That's why no one's had a life-changing event or change with conventional yogurt. And the number of microbes is very low. And we're going to ferment with human microbes. You know, I was in a beer, one of these brewing stores. I wanted some venting caps because we make fermented juices also, and it makes huge amounts of carbon dioxide. And you want to vent that carbon dioxide so your container doesn't explode, right?
Right.
Well, the beer making guys, very helpful guys. They ferment a lot of stuff, but they're fermenting beer and ale and wine. And they use these microbes like Saccharomyces cerevisiae and Lactobacillus brevis, things like that. And they said, what are you doing? I said, well, we're fermenting human microbes. They're like, oh, what? And it struck me how unique what it is what we're doing. We are fermenting human microbes. It could be Lactobacillus reuteri. It could be Lactobacillus gasseri. It could be Bifidobacterium infantis. It could be Bacillus coagulans, Bacillus subtilis. There's a whole range of interesting microbes to play with, many of which we've lost. So you can restore some and get some extraordinary beneficial effects.
That's fascinating. Well, you know, it's interesting in talking about making the MyReuteri cultured dairy, you mentioned that you can get your capsules, make your one batch, and then use your first batch to make your second batch, use your second batch to make your third batch, and so on and so forth. I know a lot of viewers, and I experience this also, when I make my first batch, it's sometimes like chunky, there's sort of curds and whey. And I know a lot of people will ask me, is it okay to consume? Do you just mix it up and eat it like that? And then going forward, save a little and make the second batch. And I often find my second batch comes a lot creamier and smoother.
We call that the first batch effect, and it's presumably due to kind of awakening the microbes. So when you get the microbes as a product like MyReuteri or other source, they've been lyophilized, that is freeze-dried at a very low temperature. And so they're quiescent. So the first batch, I think we're kind of reawakening their metabolic machinery. Now, you can either mix it. I like to pour it off because the whey is one thing that has some problems. It has what's called an insulinotropic effect. It causes a boost in insulin, which can cause weight gains in some people. So I pour it off.
That. Yes, I've heard that.
Or pour it off, pour the whey liquid off, and freeze it as ice cubes. And a lot of people in my audience will use that as their starter. They use 2 cubes to start the next batch, so it doesn't go to waste.
Oh, I like that.
Now, one of the great things about this method we use of prolonged fermentation is dairy has issues. We know that.
Mhm.
But you minimize them by this method because you're going to maximally convert lactose to lactic acid. And that's why it's tart. It reduced the pH. The lactic acid reduced the pH to a very acidic 3.5, tenfold more acidic than conventional yogurt.
Mhm.
And when you achieve that level of acidity, it denatures or breaks down the casein beta A1. That's the form of casein in North America that some people have an issue with.
Mhm.
Minimize lactose. So lactose intolerant people almost always can eat the yogurt made this way. And you've minimized the potential immunogenic phenomena of casein beta A1. And if you pour off the whey or save it as ice cubes, you've eliminated that insulin provoking effect. And of course, it's tasty. Now, the cool thing, Mary, is you make yogurt with one species or others. They all have different flavor profiles.
Mhm.
Really interesting. So you can almost tell. We could do a blind taste test. And Mary says, "Oh yeah, that's Reuteri. That's Lactobacillus brevis. That's
Mm.
Bifidobacteria longum." It's a whole variety of things we can do.
That's fascinating. And now, a lot of people will ask me, what do you recommend as for daily consumption? How much of the Reuteri cultured dairy should someone eat on a daily basis?
It depends on what you're trying to achieve. So if you just want some of the skin benefits, the immune boosting effects, increased libido, a half cup a day,
Hmm.
providing 300 billion. You know, if we wanted to provide 300 billion microbes in capsule form, it would be extremely expensive.
Yes.
So I'm in conversations all the time with microbe manufacturers. These are big companies with 60-foot stainless steel vats, with things we wouldn't do in our house,
Yeah.
and it's very expensive, on the order of thousands of dollars per kilogram. And so, if we wanted to make a capsule that provided 300 billion, it could be done, but it would be really expensive. So
Mhm.
making the yogurt to achieve counts like 300 billion is a very low cost workaround to give you big counts. So if you just want better skin, all those kinds of things, a half cup per day is more than enough. You can even spread it out over time because Reuteri does take up temporary residence for a couple of days, few days. You could do it every other day or something like that. Now, the one exception to that is if you're starting out with a really bad case of colonic dysbiosis or
Mhm.
SIBO. Let's say you have multiple food intolerances. I can't eat nightshades, histamine-containing foods,
Mm.
FODMAPs. You know these people. I can
Yes.
only eat 7 foods.
Yes.
That's SIBO. Or if you have a condition that's essentially synonymous with SIBO, fibromyalgia is SIBO. Restless leg syndrome, that's SIBO. People who have type 2 diabetes, obesity, an autoimmune condition or neurodegenerative condition, sleep apnea. Oh no, these are the incidence of SIBO so high, you can safely assume that you've got SIBO. Now, what if we said, Mary, what if we said, all right, you think you have SIBO? Well, first of all, don't ask the doctor. The doctor will say, "Oh, Mary, you've been consulting Dr. Google again, haven't you?" Or, "There's nothing wrong with you. It's in your head. Don't waste my time." That's how my colleagues react, right? For the most part. I'm generalizing, of course. But what if the solution for SIBO and all the problems associated with it, depression, anxiety, cognitive impairment, rosacea, psoriasis, weight gain, abdominal fat, on and on and on. What if the solution was surgical removal of your small intestine that ruins your life? Well,
Mm.
you better be damn confident that's really necessary, right? But what if the solution is something that looks and smells like yogurt that you make in your kitchen and gives you smoother skin, youthful musculature, improved libido, makes you nicer to other people, increases love and affection, increases generosity? You don't have to be so confident that you have it or not. So, well, one regret I have, Mary, is so one of the things we do, as you know, is what I call SIBO yogurt. It's our
Yes.
friend Lactobacillus reuteri, Lactobacillus gasseri. The original formulation included Bacillus coagulans. I've since switched to Bacillus subtilis. Coagulans is hard to ferment. Subtilis
Mhm.
much easier. And so far, we've had Huge success, far more than I ever expected in getting rid of SIBO by eating a yogurt. Now you have to take it for a minimum of 4 weeks every day, half cup every day, because the advantage of the yogurt is massive amplification of bacterial numbers. So that's where I wouldn't use the capsules alone.
Mhm.
I'd use the capsules to make the yogurt and then use the yogurt and then use your judgment. If you have really bad SIBO, like you say, I took antibiotics for 4 years for acne or whatever, you may want to do it for 8 weeks. And
Mm.
but most people 4 weeks and then consume intermittently, like maybe 3 times a week or so for the rest of your life until we figure out how to make these microbes take up permanent residence. Right now, no one knows how to do that. It's
Mm.
probably a matter of what's called community or guild or consortia. That is, microbes are like us. You have a partner, you have children, you have family, you have coworkers, neighbors, community. Microbes are the same. And they need their community to survive long term. We don't yet know, for instance, what
Mhm.
the community is for Reuteri. Maybe in a few years we'll know, but right now we just don't know that. So you consume it long term. So it's a little bit of hassle. As you know, it's minimal hassle really to make
Oh,
the thing.
it's minimal. Yeah. It's easy to make, and you just develop a routine, and it's so nice because you're just saving some of what you made, and I usually find that, I'll make, like, a 10-day supply and then save a little bit from my last little jar and start my new batch, and it's just routine. Many of the folks watching today have what we call traditional foods kitchens. We're making our ferments, we're making our bone broth, and we're just making our cultured dairy, we're making our Reuteri. It's just part of the rhythm of our traditional foods kitchens. But if you'd like to hear the entire interview with Dr. Davis, be sure to click on this video over here, and we'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country kitchen. Love and God bless.